and to Mariana and David and Gus and Julian and Lee, congratulations. This is a huge step. It's an important spring and summer for you and your classmates, your relatives, and your friends. Possibilities open in front of you now that you could have only dreamt of. School, work, the military, travel, continuing relationships, new relationships, making your own decisions. All these and more belong to you. You now enter adulthood, and yes, the thorns. This morning, I want to share briefly some simple rules of adulthood. Now, you've probably already heard them, so you can roll your eyes when appropriate. And you've probably heard them more than once. So, if you need to text, this is a good time. But one of my many rules of ministry is that a good minister provides a good example. It's really essential in my line of work. Examples include our mistakes. As writer Oscar Wilde wrote many years ago, experience is the name everyone gives to their mistakes. And I have lots of experience. This was true last Sunday when I did a sermon on life and death as part of Memorial Day weekend. Last Saturday, I was working on the sermon and getting rather fretful, and had come to the part when I wanted to mention the memorial services for the people last year who had died here, and we did services for them. I went to my notes on all three computers. I did a search on my email, and I wrote down dutifully what I remembered. My intuition kept telling me that I was missing something. And later, it was yelling at me. As usual, it was right. So the first simple rule of adulthood is this: learn to know your intuitive voice and trust it. Now, our intuitive voice is not the one that necessarily invites us to take risks. You know, the one that says, I wonder why they say don't press the red button. Or the one that says, oh, go for it. Driving down this one-way street the wrong way at night will be just fine. That's not the intuitive voice. The intuitive voice is going to speak to you at such times and say, are you blankety blank blank kidding yourself? Don't do it. In my case, my intuitive voice was telling me I'd forgotten someone important. I ignored it. Why? Well, I had other things on my mind. Packing, looking for housing in Bend on Craigslist, dealing with two very annoying felines, anxiety about medical tests that were coming up that thankfully turned out all to the good. This brings me to the second example of our second simple rule of adulthood. Don't pretend to multitask successfully. It ain't gonna work. One study that I read online in The Guardian from England this week said, driving while talking on a cell phone is like driving drunk. The brain is a sequential processor, and large fractions of a second are consumed every time the brain changes tasks. This is why cell phone talkers are a half second slower to hit the brakes and get into more accidents. And may I add here, also texting while driving. As the brain, they go on, switches from task to task rapidly, less and less gets reviewed and analyzed and thought through. So, I sat at my computer and I went through my notes and checked off names, and I completely forgot the memorial service for David Nelson, who died here earlier this year. Sunday morning arrived, and I did my part of the service, and I thought it was going pretty well, but my intuition kept saying, Alex. After the service was done, I saw Andy Nelson in the hall outside, and she, in the most kindly way, reminded me that I'd forgotten David's service. So now we come to the third simple rule of adulthood. Take responsibility for our mistakes. It took me a couple of minutes to realize what Andy was telling me, and also my intuition very helpfully saying, "Told you so." I immediately apologized to her, and even though Andy's not here now this morning, I'm going to apologize to her through all of you. Andy, I apologize for forgetting David's service. I make no excuses for it, and I will not make that mistake again. I also say it to you as a congregation, because David and Andy were part of this community. And in forgetting last Sunday, I didn't just forget for Andy, but for you all. So I apologize to you all. The main thing is that we make mistakes throughout our lives, and we know that. But there's a certain nagging, shall we say, American idea that we have to be perfect, at the very least. We're not. We are more like our beloved national pastime, not politics, but baseball, where a baseball player is seen as doing a really, really good job if they are hitting the ball safely 1/3 of the time. One success out of 3 tries, well, that doesn't sound very good, and it sounds actually un-American, but that's the truth of our lives. And baseball actually shows it very well. A batting average of 3.33 wouldn't be too bad in the majors. And what it tells us is that success and failures are both learning experiences. We learn all the time by every experience we have, failures as much as success. So this brings me to the fourth and final rule I would share with you this morning. You've all heard of Steve Jobs. You remember him. Well, he said it very well, actually, part of this rule. He said, when you innovate, you make mistakes. It's best to admit them quickly and then get on with improving. Okay. So part of the fourth rule. We make mistakes, we admit them, we improve ourselves. But it doesn't end there. Steve Jobs was brilliant. He, however, was not an especially kind person. His skills at innovation were far more advanced than his skills in compassion. You're better than he is in this regard. So the whole fourth rule would be this. When you innovate, you make mistakes. It is best to admit them quickly and get on with improving yourself and helping others improve their lives. As your parents mentioned this morning, you have been taught here at this congregation by your parents, your families, your friends, and your teachers. Hopefully, we have taught you that compassion and helping others is as important and part of being successful in life. We admire you enormously, and we also know you're going into a hard world. What we can say is good luck to you at this time of challenges and gifts. And as you can probably gather, we are all as proud as anything of you, because we know that you're going to change the world in your own ways, in your own time, in ways that we could never imagine. So to end, let me just give you 3 more little notes. 1, at the beginning of each day, if you can, try to remember that there are lives all around you to heal. At the end of every day, try to remember one thing that you have done to be kind to another human being or another being. And all day, every day, if possible, be kind to yourself. That's where it starts, no matter what. And that is the core of our religious belief, that we must be kind to ourselves and forgiving to ourselves because we are worthy. And because we are worthy, everyone is worthy, with no one left out. Good luck.